Hey, tonight we're going to explore the fragrant, sometimes pungent world of a medieval town where bathing was considered both a luxury and, at times, a danger to one's health. Imagine walking through narrow cobblestone streets where the air hangs heavy with a complex tapestry of aromas. Wood smoke, animal dung, herbs, spices, and yes, the unmistakable musk of human bodies that haven't touched water in months. This isn't a journey for the faint of heart or sensitive of nose, but rather an immersion into a time when people's relationship with cleanliness was vastly different from our modern obsessions. The inhabitants of these towns weren't dirty by choice, but followed customs and beliefs handed down through generations, living in harmony with their understanding of health and spirituality. If you're enjoying these historical journeys to help you drift to sleep, I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment tomorrow to like, share, or perhaps even subscribe. Your support means the world to me and helps these stories reach others who might find comfort in them too. I wonder, where are you listening from tonight? Perhaps a cozy bedroom far removed from these medieval streets we're about to explore. Now dim your lights, settle deeper into your comfortable sanctuary, and let the gentle murmur of history's forgotten rhythms cradle you towards sleep as we step back in time together. You stand at the edge of a small town nestled in a valley. The year is 1423, and the early morning mist clings to the thatched rooftops like a lover reluctant to leave. The sun hasn't yet crested the eastern hills, but already the town is stirring to life. It's late autumn, and the air carries the crisp scent of approaching winter, alongside the more persistent aromas that define this community. This is Willowbrook, a market town of some 300 souls, where people bathe communally only twice each year. Once before the winter solstice, and once during midsummer celebrations. Your modern sensibilities might already be recoiling at the thought, but here, in this time, in this place, such bathing customs are entirely normal. The people of Willowbrook don't consider themselves unclean. Rather, they have different methods of maintaining what they consider proper hygiene, methods that have served them and their ancestors for generations. As you approach the town gate, a simple wooden structure more symbolic than defensive, the guard nods a greeting. His woolen cap is pulled low against the morning chill, and his breath forms small clouds in the air. You notice immediately that he smells of smoke, sweat, and something herbal, perhaps rosemary or lavender, that has been rubbed into his clothes to ward off less pleasant odours. "Good morrow to you, traveller," he says, his voice gravelly from sleep. "What brings you to Willowbrook on this fine day?" You explain that you're simply passing through, and he waves you onward with a weathered hand. His fingernails are rimmed with dirt, but not excessively so. Medieval people, you're beginning to realise, aren't without cleanliness standards. They're just different from what you're accustomed to. The main street leads you past rows of timber-framed houses leaning inward, as if sharing secrets, their upper stories jutting out over the narrow thoroughfare. The ground is a mixture of packed earth and scattered straw, not entirely unpleasant to walk upon. You notice immediately that the street is not as filthy as modern stereotypes might have led you to believe. While there are certainly animal droppings here and there, mostly from the chickens that peck freely between buildings, the townspeople have clearly established systems for managing waste. A woman emerges from one of the houses carrying a small bucket. She walks purposefully to a designated area at the end of the street, a rudimentary drainage ditch, where she empties what appears to be kitchen waste and dirty water. Her hair is tucked neatly beneath a linen head covering, and her woolen dress, though simple, appears well maintained. She catches your eye and offers a curious smile before returning to her home. The smell is undeniably different from a modern town. There's a layered quality to it. Smoke from cooking fires, the earthy aroma of livestock kept in small pens behind houses, the tang of fermenting vegetables being preserved for winter, and yes, the unmistakable human scent that comes from bodies and clothing that aren't regularly washed with water. Yet it's not as overwhelming as you might have expected. The human nose is remarkably adaptable, and already you find yourself noticing other smells: fresh bread baking, herbs hanging to dry outside an apothecary shop, the sweet scent of apples being pressed for cider. As you continue walking, you pass the town well, a stone-lined shaft with a wooden roof and winch system for drawing water. Several women have gathered here, talking quietly as they wait their turn to fill wooden buckets. Water is precious, used primarily for drinking and cooking. The concept of using large quantities of it for bathing would seem wasteful, even foolish to these people. One woman notices your clean-looking attire and gives you a curious glance. In a world where your social status is immediately apparent from your clothing, your relative cleanliness marks you as either wealthy or foreign. She whispers something to her companion, who steals a glance your way as well. You continue toward the town square, where the daily market is beginning to take shape. Vendors arrange their wares on simple wooden tables or spread blankets on the ground. A butcher hangs freshly slaughtered geese from hooks at his stall, their plucked bodies pale in the strengthening morning light. Nearby, a woman arranges bundles of herbs, some for cooking, others for medicinal purposes, and still others specifically for odour management. Finest lavender bundles, she calls out as you pass, keeps the air sweet when tucked beneath your pillow, or perhaps some dried rosemary for your linen chest, keeps away both moths and malodors. You pause at her stall, intrigued. The herbs are tied with simple twine into neat bundles, their scents mingling pleasantly. This, you realise, is one way the people of Willowbrook manage body odour, not through washing with water, but through the clever use of aromatics. I have rose petals too, the herb seller continues, sensing your interest. Dried from summer blooms. The ladies crush them and rub them on their necks and wrists when they wish to seem especially appealing. Much safer than water, wouldn't you agree? You inquire about this comment, and the woman's eyebrows rise in surprise. Why, everyone knows excessive bathing opens the pores and allows illness to enter the body, she explains, as though reciting an obvious truth. That's why we limit our full immersions to the turning of the seasons, when the body must adapt regardless. Only the very ill or very foolish would bathe weekly, as they say they do in the southern countries. This perspective isn't unique to the herb seller. Throughout medieval Europe, many physicians cautioned against frequent bathing, believing it weakened the body and made it susceptible to disease. The theory of the four humours, blood, phlegm, black bile and yellow bile, suggested that health depended on maintaining proper balance, and excessive bathing was thought to disrupt this delicate equilibrium. As the market becomes busier, you find yourself drawn to a stall selling small cloth pouches filled with aromatic mixtures, the medieval equivalent of perfume. The seller, a middle-aged man with a clean-shaven face, explains that gentlemen carry these pouches, called pomanders, to hold against their noses when travelling through less pleasant areas of town. Ladies often hang similar devices from their belts, infused with cloves, cinnamon or dried flower petals. A necessity for anyone of quality, he assures you, holding out a sample for you to smell. The blend of spices is intense but pleasant, capable of overriding less desirable odours. As midday approaches, you feel hunger gnawing at your stomach. A tavern on the edge of the square offers food and drink, and you make your way toward it. Inside, the air is warmer, filled with the smells of roasting meat and freshly baked bread. The tavern keeper, a robust man with a full beard, nods as you enter. You choose a seat at one of the long wooden tables already occupied by several local craftsmen taking their midday meal. They eye you with natural curiosity but make room without comment. One of them, a carpenter by the look of his clothes and the fine sawdust still clinging to his sleeves, offers you a friendly nod. "Not from Willowbrook, are you?" he asks, taking a drink from his wooden cup. Up close you can smell the mixture of sweat, wood shavings, and the faint herbal scent that seems common among the townspeople. You confirm that you're just passing through, and this seems to satisfy his curiosity. The carpenter and his companions continue their conversation, discussing a new commission from the local lord. repairs to the small hunting lodge he maintains in the forest beyond the town. The tavern keeper brings you a wooden bowl filled with a thick stew of root vegetables and what might be rabbit meat, along with a chunk of dense, dark bread. The food is simple but hearty, designed to fuel a day of physical labour. As you eat, you observe the other patrons more closely. Despite the infrequent bathing, the people around you don't appear particularly filthy. Their hands show the ingrained dirt of labour, certainly, but they've clearly washed them before eating, using the basin of water near the tavern entrance. Their hair is covered or contained, the men with simple caps, the women with linen head coverings, both for practicality and modesty. Their clothes, while worn in places, show signs of care and maintenance. The carpenter notices your observations and misinterprets them. "First time in a common tavern?" he asks, not unkindly. "Don't worry, we're a respectable establishment. Master Fletcher there may smell of his trade. The adhesives for binding arrow fletchers have a distinct odour, but he's the finest bowyer in 3 counties." The Fletcher grins, displaying teeth that, while not perfectly white, are surprisingly intact for the medieval period. "Better the smell of fish glue than the smell of the tanner," he jokes, and the table erupts in laughter. After finishing your meal, you thank the tavern keeper and return to the increasingly busy streets. The day has warmed considerably, and with the higher temperature comes a stronger awareness of the town's underlying odour. Yet you're surprised to find it less offensive than you'd anticipated. Humans are remarkably adaptable creatures, and your nose is already becoming accustomed to the medieval olfactory landscape. You decide to explore further, making your way toward the town's small church, which stands in dignified simplicity at the northern edge of the settlement. The stone building is cool and dark inside, smelling of beeswax, candles and incense. A few townspeople kneel in prayer, taking a brief respite from their workday to offer devotions. The priest, a thin man with tonsured hair, emerges from a side room. He carries himself with quiet dignity, and his woolen robe, while simple, appears cleaner than most garments you've seen today. The clergy, you recall, often maintained different hygiene standards than the general population, with monastic rules frequently requiring regular washing of hands and face, even if full immersion bathing remained limited. "Welcome, traveller," he says softly, so as not to disturb the worshippers. "Have you come to offer prayers for your journey?" You explain that you're simply visiting the town, and he nods understandingly. Willowbrook is humble but godly. Our people may lack the refinements of larger towns, but they are honest in their devotions and their labours. As you converse quietly, you learn that the church plays a central role in the bathing rituals that do occur in Willowbrook. The semi-annual bathing is not merely a hygienic practice, but a spiritual one, marking transitions between seasons and symbolising purification. Before Christmas, the entire town participates in a ritual cleansing, preparing body and soul for the holy celebration. Similarly, the midsummer bathing coincides with the Feast of St. John, again connecting physical cleanliness with spiritual renewal. We may not indulge in frequent water immersion as they do in the bathhouses of larger cities, the priest explains, but cleanliness of spirit is our constant concern. The body is merely a vessel, after all, a temporary home for the immortal soul. You thank the priest for his insights and continue your exploration. As afternoon progresses toward evening, you find yourself on the outskirts of town, where the more pungent industries are located. Here, downwind from the main settlement, tanners transform animal hides into leather, producing one of the most distinctive and unpleasant smells of medieval industry. The tanning process involves soaking hides in urine and dung-enriched solutions to remove hair and prepare the skin for treatment. An effective method, but one that produces a truly memorable odour. Even the workers, clearly accustomed to the smell, keep cloths tied around their lower faces as they work. One of them looks up as you pass, his eyes crinkling in what might be a smile beneath his protective covering. Not staying to admire our fragrant craft, he calls out in good-natured jest. "Can't blame you. Even my wife makes me strip at the door and wash with vinegar water before she'll let me near the dinner table." This comment catches your attention. Another example of selective cleaning that doesn't involve full immersion bathing. Throughout the town, you've observed various practices that maintain a certain level of hygiene without requiring large amounts of water. The herb bundles, the vinegar washes, even the simple hand washing before meals. As you make your way back toward the town centre, you pass a shop where a barber surgeon offers his services. In addition to haircuts and beard trims, medieval barbers performed bloodletting, tooth extraction, and minor surgeries. The barber stands in his doorway, wiping his hands on a cloth that might once have been white. "Good day to you," he calls out. "In need of a trim, perhaps a shave? I use only the finest herbal oils to soften the beard before cutting. Leaves the face as smooth as a maiden's cheek." You decline politely, but pause to observe as a customer emerges from the shop, running a hand over his freshly shaven jaw. The man's face is reddened but clean, showing that personal grooming, if not complete bathing, remains an important aspect of medieval life. Evening approaches, colouring the sky in shades of amber and purple. The town's rhythms shift as craftspeople close their workshops and farmers return from outlying fields. With nightfall comes a natural reduction in activity, limited by the expense of candles and lamp oil. Most households will retire not long after sunset, rising again with the dawn. You find yourself invited to stay at the town's small inn, a simple establishment offering food, drink, and basic accommodation for travellers. The innkeeper's wife, a practical woman with strong arms and a no-nonsense expression, shows you to a small room containing a straw-filled mattress on a wooden frame. "We changed the straw last month," she informs you proudly, "and the linens were aired just yesterday. There's a chamber pot beneath the bed, and wash water in the pitcher. 1 basin per guest is our allowance. Use it wisely." The small pottery basin and pitcher represent the extent of bathing facilities available to you. The water is a room temperature but clean, and you realise that in this environment, the ability to wash even your face and hands before sleeping is considered a luxury. In the common room downstairs, several locals have gathered for evening ale and conversation. The day's work is done, and now comes the brief period of relaxation before sleep claims them. A man with a simple stringed instrument plays a soft, repeating melody, adding gentle ambience to the murmured conversations. You join the gathering, finding a seat near the small hearth, where a fire provides both warmth and light. The innkeeper brings you a wooden cup of ale without being asked, the standard evening beverage, safer to drink than water in many cases due to the brewing process. The conversation around you flows naturally, touching on the day's events, preparations for the coming winter, and mild gossip about neighbours. No one seems particularly concerned with the bodily odours that mingle in the closed space. It's simply the natural human condition in their experience. An older woman, her face mapped with the fine lines of decades lived outdoors, leans toward you conspiratorially. "I hear you've been asking about our bathing customs," she says, her voice low, but carrying enough for those nearby to hear. "Curious, isn't it? The way some towns waste good water, soaking themselves week after week, as if the Lord didn't make rain rare enough already." Several people chuckle at this, and you realise you've become the subject of town gossip during your explorations. The woman continues, warming to her topic. "My grandmother, God rest her, lived to see 92 winters, never bathed more than twice yearly her entire life. The body cleanses itself, she always said, if you give it time and air, and she was right. These young folks in the cities always soaking and scrubbing. Why, they're washing away their natural protections. It's no wonder they sicken so easily." A younger man across the table shakes his head slightly. "There's something to be said for the bathhouses, though," he argues mildly. "My cousin in London visits one monthly, says it soothes his joints and opens the humours when they've become stagnant." The old woman makes a dismissive gesture. "And half those bathhouses are dens of sin and disease. Better our way, clean body, clean spirit, both renewed together when the seasons change." This exchange highlights the complex relationship medieval people had with bathing, not simply a matter of available resources or knowledge, but a practice deeply intertwined with medical theories, religious beliefs, and social customs. As the evening progresses, you observe more subtle hygiene practices. A young woman refreshes herself by patting her neck and wrists with a cloth, dampened with rose-infused vinegar. A merchant uses a small ivory comb to neaten his beard. Another man cleans beneath his fingernails with a small wooden tool designed specifically for that purpose. When you finally retire to your small room, climbing the narrow stairs by the light of a borrowed candle, you have a new appreciation for the complexity of medieval hygiene. These people aren't simply dirty by choice or ignorance. They've developed an entire system of cleanliness that doesn't rely on complete water immersion. Your straw mattress crackles as you settle onto it. The linens, while not recently washed by modern standards, have indeed been aired, and they smell of the herbs tucked between layers when they were stored. Lavender and rosemary, nature's medieval fabric fresheners. Through the small window, left slightly open despite the cool night air, another medieval hygiene practice, the belief in the importance of fresh air circulation. You can see stars scattered across the sky. The town is quiet now, save for the occasional barking of dogs or the distant call of night watchmen marking the hours. You lie awake for some time, reflecting on what you've learned. The people of Willowbrook aren't suffering from their limited bathing practices. They've simply adapted differently to their environment than modern humans have. Their concerns about wasting water are practical in a world where every drop must be carried by hand from well or stream. Their fears about bathing causing illness make sense in the context of their limited medical knowledge and observation of correlation without understanding of causation. Moreover, they've developed numerous alternative methods for maintaining what they consider appropriate cleanliness. Herbal bundles tucked into clothing, vinegar or herb-infused water for spot cleaning, regular changing and airing of linens, protective clothing that can be more easily cleaned than bodies, and social customs that accommodate their olfactory reality. Morning arrives with the crowing of roosters and the first pale light filtering through your window. You rise and make use of the now cold wash water, cleaning your face and hands as best you can. Your body feels grimy after just one day without modern bathing facilities, but you're beginning to understand how one might adapt to these conditions given time. Downstairs, the inn is already active. The innkeeper's wife kneads dough for the day's bread, her strong arms working rhythmically. She nods as you appear, and indicates a small pot of porridge keeping warm at the edge of the cooking fire. This simple breakfast, grain cooked with water and perhaps flavoured with a little honey or dried fruit, is the standard morning meal for most medieval people. As you eat, other guests and some local regulars drift in for their own breakfast. The conversations focus on practical matters: the weather, work to be done, goods expected from travelling merchants. No one comments on anyone else's appearance or smell. In a world where everyone bathes infrequently, body odour simply becomes part of the background sensory experience. You finish your meal and prepare to depart Willowbrook, having learned far more than you expected about medieval hygiene practices. The innkeeper's wife wraps a small loaf of bread and a wedge of cheese in a clean cloth for your journey, standard provisions for travellers. Safe travels to you, she says, and if you return for the winter solstice, you'll see our bathing festival. Quite the celebration it is. We heat water in every cauldron and kettle in town, and the washing goes on from dawn till dusk. Everyone emerges clean as new lambs, ready to greet the returning light. You thank her for this information and for her hospitality. As you walk through the morning quiet streets toward the town gate, you pass the herb seller from yesterday, already arranging her bundles for the day's market. "Ah, the traveller returns," she calls cheerfully. "Perhaps today you'll consider a sachet for your journey. Rosemary and mint to keep your spirits high, and your nose pleased when the road grows long." You purchase one of her small herb bundles, appreciating now the practical purpose it serves. The smell is pleasant and surprisingly powerful, quite capable of masking less desirable odours when held near the face. At the town gate, the same guard from yesterday offers a farewell nod. His scent, that mixture of sweat, smoke and herbs, no longer seems as noticeable as it did upon your arrival. Either he's unusually fresh this morning, or your nose has already begun adapting to the medieval olfactory landscape. "Return to Willowbrook someday," he says companionably. "We may not have the grandeur of cities, but our air is sweeter, our water is cleaner, and our people are honest." As you leave the town behind, walking along the rutted dirt road that leads onward to other medieval adventures, you carry with you a new understanding. The people of Willowbrook, with their twice-yearly bathing ritual, aren't simply enduring a hardship or living in ignorance. They've created an entire cultural system around their understanding of cleanliness, health, and propriety. Modern humans, accustomed to daily showers and scented products, might indeed find it difficult to last even 24 hours in such an environment. The adjustment would be both physical and psychological, requiring not just a tolerance for different odours, but a complete recalibration of what clean means and how it should be achieved. Yet the medieval townspeople you've encountered are neither suffering nor unhappy with their practices. They've adapted perfectly to their circumstances, developing practical solutions with the resources and knowledge available to them. Their herb bundles, vinegar rinses, linen airing practices, and seasonal bathing rituals form a coherent system that meets their needs within their technological and cultural context. Perhaps the greatest lesson from your brief immersion in medieval hygiene is not about cleanliness at all, but about human adaptability. Every civilization develops practices that make sense within their specific environmental, technological, and cultural constraints. What seems strange or insufficient to outside observers often contains its own internal logic and effectiveness. As the morning mist burns away under the strengthening sun, Willowbrook disappears around a bend in the road. You carry with you not just the memory of a town where people bathe twice yearly, but a deeper appreciation for the ingenious ways humans adapt to their circumstances, finding comfort and meaning within the parameters available to them. The herb bundle in your pocket releases its fragrance with each step you take, a small but tangible reminder of a world where cleanliness was defined differently, but pursued with no less care and intention than in our modern age. The medieval approach to hygiene, like so many historical practices, reminds us that there are many ways to solve human problems, and that our modern solutions, for all their scientific backing, are just one point on a long continuum of human innovation. As this chapter closes its eyes, another tale begins to stir in the shadows of history, where the fragrance of another time beckons us forward into dreams. Amidst cobblestone pathways where time moves like honey, ancient wisdom blooms in delicate petals and fragrant leaves. The apothecary's garden beckons you with secrets of sweetness and healing, a gentle refuge from the earthy aromas of daily medieval life. Nature's perfumery awaits your wandering senses. You step through a weathered wooden doorway, the hinges creaking softly as you enter the world of a medieval apothecary. The year is 1347, and the town of Avignon rests peacefully under a blanket of early morning mist. The street outside may carry the mingled sense of humanity that bathes but twice yearly, yet here, within these walls, a different aromatic tale unfolds. Your nostrils flare slightly, welcoming the complex symphony of scents that dance through the air. Dried lavender hanging in neat bundles from exposed oak beams, rosemary sprigs bound with twine, and glass jars containing mysterious powders and oils that promise respite from the less pleasant odours of medieval existence. The floor beneath your feet is worn smooth by countless footsteps, scattered with fresh rushes and herbs that release their fragrance as you walk. Mint and thyme rise to greet you with each step, their essential oils released into the air. Sunlight filters through a single window of oiled parchment, casting a warm, honey-coloured glow across the workshop. Dust motes dance in the beam like tiny messengers, carrying the secrets of the herbs that surround you. The apothecary himself is nowhere to be seen, perhaps gone to collect the morning dew that settles on roses and is prized for its softening effect on the skin. You are alone with the garden of dried and living plants, each with stories to tell of how people in this time survive, and find small comforts in a world where bathing is rare and often feared. Your fingers brush against a bundle of dried chamomile, its papery flowers still holding the memory of summer fields. The touch releases a faint apple-like sweetness that medieval people associate with calm and restful sleep. You remember that chamomile is often sewn into small sachet bags and placed beneath pillows, offering gentle dreams to those who rest their heads there. Moving deeper into the apothecary, you notice a collection of ceramic pots containing salves and unguents. These are the treasured possessions of those who can afford them. Pomanders of cloves and cinnamon to hold near one's nose when passing through less fragrant streets, and rose-scented waters for the gentlest cleansing of hands and face when full immersion in water is months away. At the back of the shop, a small garden opens up, enclosed by stone walls covered in climbing vines. Here the apothecary grows his most precious ingredients. Lavender stands in neat rows, its slender stalks swaying slightly in the morning breeze. You kneel beside it, running your palm just above the purple blossoms, feeling the warmth they've collected from the early sun. The scent rises to meet you, clean, herbaceous, and slightly sweet. It's no wonder that lavender is cherished in this age of limited bathing, its oil rubbed onto skin and clothes, its dried flowers tucked into every corner of humble homes and grand castles alike. Beyond the lavender, rosemary grows in abundance, its needle-like leaves dark green against the light-coloured stone wall. You pinch a sprig between your fingers, releasing its piney, invigorating scent. Women in this time often carry rosemary in small bundles, inhaling its clear-headed aroma throughout the day. It's believed to improve memory and protect against illness, but its practical use as a personal perfume is perhaps even more valuable in daily life. The sound of water draws your attention to a small fountain in the garden centre. Clean water bubbles up from a stone spout, filling a basin where calendula and cornflower petals float on the surface. This is where the apothecary prepares his hydrosols, flower waters created by steam distillation, used as gentle astringents and body fresheners when baths are but distant luxuries. You dip your fingers into the cool water, watching the ripples spread outward. On a nearby workbench you notice glass alembics and copper stills, the tools used to capture the essence of plants. The process is slow and methodical, requiring patience as steam carries volatile oils upward, then cools and condenses into precious aromatic waters. Nothing is wasted in this medieval world. The remaining plant material will be dried and used in sachets or burned as incense. The garden gate creaks open, and the apothecary returns, his arms full of freshly gathered herbs. He's an older man with kind eyes and hands stained green from years of working with plants. He nods in greeting but doesn't speak, allowing the peaceful morning to remain undisturbed. You watch as he carefully lays out his gathered treasures on a clean cloth, young nettle leaves for spring tonics, dandelion roots for liver health, and wild mint that grows along the stream outside the town walls. He gestures for you to join him as he begins to sort through the plants. You sit on a wooden stool worn smooth by years of use, breathing in the fresh, green scent of newly harvested herbs. The apothecary hands you a bunch of lemon balm, indicating that you should strip the leaves from the stems. As you work together in companionable silence, you notice how his movements are deliberate and respectful. Each plant is acknowledged for its gifts before being prepared for its medicinal purpose. The morning passes this way, your hands becoming fragrant with the oils of a dozen different herbs. You learn to recognize the sharp, clean scent of sage, valued for its preservative qualities and often burned to purify the air in sick rooms. You discover the subtle sweetness of sweet cicely, used to flavour medicines and mask less pleasant tastes, and you come to appreciate the spicy warmth of angelica root, carried as an amulet against both disease and unpleasant odours. When the church bell rings for the midday meal, the apothecary invites you to share a simple repast of bread, cheese, and honey. Before eating, he passes you a small bowl of rosewater to cleanse your hands, a luxury that reveals his status in the community. The cool floral water removes the green stains from your fingers, leaving behind the faintest perfume that will linger for hours. As you eat in the dappled shade of an ancient pear tree, the apothecary finally speaks, his voice as measured and thoughtful as his movements. He tells you of the medieval understanding of scent and its power over health and well-being. In this time, people believe that disease travels through miasmas, foul-smelling air that carries sickness. The pleasant scents of herbs and flowers are not merely for comfort, but are considered essential protection against illness. This belief explains why, despite infrequent bathing, medieval people are deeply concerned with pleasant aromas. The wealthy carry pomanders, perforated gold or silver balls filled with ambergris, musk and cloves, to ward off disease and mask the smells of unwashed bodies and streets. Those of humbler means tuck nosegays of fresh herbs into pockets, or wear them pinned to clothing, changing them as the scent fades and the plants wilt. The apothecary shares the formula for a popular hand wash used by those who can afford such luxuries. Rosewater forms the base, with powdered orris root for fixative properties, crushed lavender for freshness, and a few precious drops of imported orange flower water for its uplifting quality. This concoction is applied to the hands and face each morning, providing a sense of cleanliness without immersion in water, which many believe opens the body to dangerous humours. As the afternoon light begins to soften, you follow the apothecary back inside to his workroom. Here, he demonstrates how to create a simple pomander ball using an apple as the base. With a small knife, he carefully inserts whole cloves in a geometric pattern across the fruit's surface. Once covered, the apple is rolled in a mixture of ground cinnamon, nutmeg and orris root, then wrapped in silk and hung by a ribbon to dry slowly. In 3 weeks, it will shrink and harden into a spicy scented ball that will perfume a room or chest of clothing for months. Next, he shows you how to prepare a bathing herb bundle for one of the biannual bathing occasions. While the wealthy might enjoy private baths scented with rose petals and sweet flag root, most people visit public bathhouses. To make the experience more pleasant and healthful, bundles of thyme, rosemary and lavender are tied together and either floated in the water or used to scrub the skin directly. The heat of the water releases the herb's essential oils, creating a therapeutic steam that opens pores and allows for deeper cleansing. You learn that between these infrequent baths, people rely on dry cleaning methods. The apothecary demonstrates how powdered orris root mixed with dried lavender flowers creates a sweet-scented powder that can be sprinkled on the body or clothing, then brushed away, taking surface oils and odours with it. Fine linen undergarments, changed regularly and washed, provide another layer of protection against body odours. As shadows lengthen across the workroom floor, the apothecary begins preparing the evening's work, creating a batch of plague water, a popular preventative against the dreaded disease that has been rumouring from distant lands. Into a large glass vessel, he places angelica root, marigold flowers, elderflowers, and dozens of other herbs, covering them with the finest wine vinegar. This will steep for a month before being strained and bottled, ready to be dabbed on pulse points or sprinkled on handkerchiefs during times of sickness. You help by crushing juniper berries in a mortar, releasing their sharp, pine-like aroma. The scent is so clean and fresh that you understand immediately why they are burned on household fires to purify the air. The apothecary explains that juniper smoke is believed to drive away the miasmas of disease, and the berries themselves are carried in pockets to ward off illness. As evening approaches, a young woman enters the shop, her clothing simple but well made, marking her as the wife of a prosperous merchant. She's come to collect a special commission, a bathing preparation for her upcoming confinement. Childbirth in medieval times is surrounded by specific rituals and practices, including special herbal baths both before and after delivery. The apothecary presents her with a cloth bag containing dried rose petals, calendula flowers and ground almonds, a gentle mixture that will soften the skin and provide emotional comfort during her vulnerable time. The woman also purchases a small vial of lavender oil to scent her birthing chamber and a bundle of dried rosemary to be burned as incense during labour. These aromatics serve dual purposes, masking less pleasant scents while providing therapeutic benefits. Lavender to calm anxiety, rosemary to strengthen the mother's constitution. Nothing in medieval herbal practice has a single purpose. Each plant offers multiple gifts to those who understand its nature. After the woman leaves, the apothecary invites you to join him in preparing the evening's incense. Unlike the heavy church incenses of frankincense and myrrh, household incense is made from locally available herbs, burned on small charcoal discs to purify and scent the evening air. You help mix dried white sage, rosemary and thyme with a small amount of dried lemon peel, a rare luxury that speaks to the apothecary's successful trade. As the mixture burns in a small earthenware dish, the aromatic smoke curls upward, filling the shop with a clean, herbaceous scent that displaces any lingering odours of the day. This evening, ritual marks the transition from work to rest. creating an atmosphere of calm before the night prayer and sleep. The apothecary offers you a simple sleeping draught, a tea of linden flowers, chamomile and honey to ensure restful dreams. As you sip the sweet, floral infusion, he tells you of the medieval belief that scent affects dreams. Mugwort tucked under a pillow brings prophetic visions, while lavender ensures peaceful rest. Rose petals promise dreams of love, and bay leaves reveal future spouses. In a world lit only by fire, where the night is long and dark, the quality of dreams holds great importance. You begin to feel drowsy as the tea does its work, and the apothecary shows you to a small chamber above the shop, where apprentices and visitors sometimes rest. The bed, a simple wooden frame with a straw-filled mattress, has been prepared with clean linen sheets scented with dried lavender tucked between the layers. A small sachet of hops and chamomile hangs from the bedpost, its gentle sedative properties working through both scent and proximity. Before bidding you good night, the apothecary places a terracotta disc on a shelf near the bed. Warmed earlier by the kitchen fire, it has been sprinkled with a few drops of rose and violet oils. The heat slowly releases the floral scent, which will perfume the room throughout the night, masking any less pleasant odours that might drift in from the street below. As you settle beneath the woolen blanket, you reflect on what you've learned about this medieval world and its complex relationship with scent. Though bathing is infrequent, cleanliness and pleasant aromas are highly valued and carefully cultivated. The knowledge of plants and their properties provides comfort and protection in a time before modern hygiene, creating a surprisingly sophisticated approach to managing the body's natural processes. Your dreams that night are filled with garden paths and drifting floral scents. You walk through lavender fields that stretch to the horizon, their purple haze meeting a cerulean sky. Bees hum lazily around your head, gathering nectar from the abundant blooms. The earth beneath your feet releases the scent of sun-warmed clay and ancient minerals. Morning comes with birdsong and the church bells calling the faithful to prayer. The apothecary has already been awake for hours, collecting the dew that rests on rose petals before the sun becomes too strong. This precious liquid, believed to hold the essence of youth, will be carefully bottled and sold at a premium to noblewomen who apply it to their faces with soft cloths. You join him in the garden, where he shows you how to harvest rose petals correctly, gathering them in the early morning when their oil content is highest, handling them gently to preserve their delicate cells, and drying them in the shade to maintain their colour and scent. As the morning progresses, a nobleman's servant arrives with a request for a special perfume. The master is travelling to court and wishes to make a favourable impression on the king. The apothecary nods thoughtfully before selecting several small vials from a locked cabinet. These contain his most precious ingredients: ambergris collected from seaside shores, civet from specialised traders, and essential oils of exotic spices that travel along the Silk Road at great expense. You watch as he carefully combines these treasures, adding them drop by drop to a base of alcohol distilled from wine. The resulting fragrance is complex and layered, opening with bright citrus notes from rare bergamot, developing a heart of rose and cinnamon, and finishing with the deep animal notes of musk and ambergris that will last for days on the skin and clothing. The perfume is sealed in a small crystal vial, corked and tied with silk ribbon. The apothecary records the formula in a vellum-bound book, noting the nobleman's name and the date. Each perfume is unique, created for the individual's personal humoral balance and social standing. As noon approaches, the apothecary sends you to the town square with a basket of medicinal vinegars and sachets to sell at the weekly market. You set up a small table near the fountain, arranging the goods attractively. The vinegars, infused with tarragon, rue and rosemary, are popular with housewives who use them for cooking, cleaning and protecting against disease. The sachets, filled with dried lavender, rose petals and cloves, will be tucked between stored linens or hung in wardrobes to scent clothing and repel moths. As you sell these goods, you observe the people around you with new understanding. The fishmonger's wife wears a pomander chain at her waist. the pierced silver ball containing strong spices to counter the smells of her husband's trade. A young dandy passes by, a handkerchief scented with costly imported orange flower water held casually to his nose. Women carry nosegays of fresh herbs, and men wear small bags of protective herbs pinned to their doublets. Though bathing is infrequent, you notice that cleanliness is maintained in other ways. Hands and faces are wiped with scented cloths, linen undergarments are changed regularly, and clothes are aired and perfumed with herbs. The medieval approach to hygiene is different but not absent, focused on managing rather than eliminating natural body odours, and using plant allies to create pleasant personal atmospheres. When you return to the apothecary shop, you find him instructing a young mother on how to prepare an herbal bath for her infant. Unlike adults, babies are bathed more frequently, their delicate skin cleansed with decoctions of chamomile and calendula. The mother listens carefully as he explains how to test the temperature with her elbow, and how to support the baby's head while washing with the herb-infused water. As afternoon turns to evening, the apothecary takes you to visit a nearby monastery, where monks maintain an extensive medicinal garden. The monastery follows the rule of Saint Benedict, which places great importance on cleanliness despite the general medieval wariness of water. The brothers wash their hands before meals and maintain a lavatorium where hands and faces are cleansed daily. The monastery garden is a marvel of organisation and diversity, with plants arranged according to their properties and uses. You walk along neat paths between beds of healing herbs, feverfew for headaches, valerian for sleep, comfrey for wound healing. The air is perfumed with the mingled scents of 100 different species, creating an atmosphere of calm and contemplation. The herbalist monk shows you the distillery where essential oils are extracted from plants through careful steam distillation. Rose petals yield precious attar of roses, lavender flowers give up their essential oil, and rosemary releases its camphoraceous essence. These concentrated plant medicines are then used in the infirmary to treat sick brothers and local villagers who seek the monastery's help. You learn that the monastery provides one of the few places where regular bathing is practiced, albeit with specific restrictions. The brothers are permitted to bathe at Christmas, Easter, Pentecost and mid-August, 4 times annually rather than the general population's 2. Even so, complete immersion is approached with caution, as medieval medicine believes that opening the pores with hot water can allow disease to enter the body more easily. As you return to the town with the apothecary, you pass by the public bathhouse. Unlike the monastery's private facilities, this establishment serves the townspeople when seasonal bathing days arrive. It's currently closed, as the next general bathing time won't occur until midsummer, but the apothecary explains its operation. When open, the bathhouse provides large wooden tubs filled with heated water. Patrons bring their own herbal bundles or purchase them from attendants. Men and women bathe separately on different days or in different sections of the establishment. The experience is as much social as hygienic, with refreshments served and music often played for entertainment. After bathing, people apply scented oils to their clean skin, extending the feeling of freshness as long as possible. Back at the apothecary shop, as evening approaches once more, a group of wealthy women arrives for a special workshop. They have come to learn how to create their own hand waters and facial treatments, a popular social activity among ladies of means. The apothecary has prepared workstations with small glass bowls, copper measuring spoons, and an array of ingredients. You help distribute rosewater and powdered almonds, watching as the women create cleansing pastes by mixing these with honey and a few drops of lavender oil. The paste is gently massaged into the skin and then wiped away with soft cloths, leaving faces glowing and lightly scented. Next, they prepare hand waters by infusing vinegar with rosemary and sage, then diluting it with rosewater and adding a pinch of powdered orris root for its fixative properties. The women chat as they work, exchanging household remedies and beauty secrets passed down through generations. One elderly lady shares her grandmother's recipe for a complexion wash of cucumber water and elderflower. Another offers her knowledge of using green strawberries to remove freckles and sunspots. Though their approaches might seem primitive by modern standards, their attention to personal cleanliness within the constraints of medieval understanding is impressive. After the workshop, as twilight deepens into night, the apothecary invites you to join him for the final task of the day. Behind the shop, in a small courtyard lit by iron lanterns, he has prepared a steaming bath infused with lavender, rosemary and sweet flag root. This rare indulgence, he explains, is his monthly practice, more frequent than the general population, but still approached with the careful respect that water commands in this era. While you politely decline the bath, you help by heating additional water over the courtyard fire and preparing the drying cloths and scented oils that will follow his bathing ritual. As you work, you reflect on how this medieval approach to cleanliness, though different from your own, carries its own wisdom and beauty. The careful attention to scent, the respectful use of plants, and the mindful practices surrounding personal hygiene reveal a sophisticated understanding of how to live well within the constraints of the time. Later that evening, as you prepare once again for sleep in the small chamber above the shop, you notice how your perception has shifted. The smells of the medieval town no longer seem uniformly unpleasant or foreign. Instead, you recognize the complex layering of aromas, the sharp tang of wood smoke, the yeasty scent of the bakery, the green notes of herbs hung to dry in doorways, and yes, the earthy musk of humanity that bathes infrequently, but counters this reality with ingenious botanical solutions. You drift into dreams scented with lavender and rosemary, your understanding of cleanliness and comfort expanded by this journey into the aromatic world of medieval life. The practices you've witnessed might not match modern standards, but they represent a thoughtful adaptation to the beliefs and limitations of their time, a reminder that human ingenuity always finds a way to create comfort and beauty, even when warm baths are a rare luxury and soap is made from wood ash and animal fat. As your consciousness floats between waking and sleeping, you carry with you the knowledge that cleanliness has many expressions across time and culture. The medieval way may not be your way, but it holds its own wisdom. The intimate knowledge of plants and their properties, the mindful attention to the body's needs, and the understanding that well-being involves all the senses, especially the often overlooked sense of smell. The ancient timepiece in the town square strikes midnight, its sonorous tones barely reaching your ears through the herb-scented darkness. Tomorrow will bring new discoveries in this world of infrequent bathing, but constant attention to botanical cleanliness. For now, though, you rest in the gentle embrace of dream time, your journey through medieval aromatic wisdom, continuing in the landscape of sleep. As this tapestry of herbal wisdom folds gently into memory, another world awaits beyond the veil of sleep. Let us drift now, like petals on a stream, toward ancient streets where culinary spices and precious incense tell stories of merchants and their distant journeys. Beyond the gates of history, where spindles whirl and looms clack in ancient rhythm, lies a world where fabric speaks of status and necessity. Soft linen against skin, wool to ward off winter's grasp, each thread spun with purpose in a time when bathing was rare and cloth became both armour and identity. The late autumn sun filters through the small uneven window of the weaver's cottage, casting dancing patterns across the wooden floor. You find yourself standing within this humble abode, the familiar world you know having melted away during your night's slumber. The air carries a distinct perfume, earthy wool, sharp vinegar, and the sweet tang of mordants used for dyeing. You notice your hands are slightly roughened, the fingers bearing the calluses of someone who has spent countless hours working with thread and fabric. Around you, the weaver's cottage breathes with life accumulated over generations. Bundles of dried herbs hang from low ceiling beams, some for medicine, others for dyeing textiles in vibrant hues, woad for blue, madder for red, weld for yellow. The colours of medieval life are not the faded, muddy tones often depicted in modern imagination, but vivid statements of craft and status. A large loom dominates one corner of the room, its wooden frame worn smooth from years of use, partly dressed with a half-finished length of cloth showing an intricate diamond twill pattern. You step forward, feeling the uneven floorboards beneath your feet. Your clothing feels strange against your skin, multiple layers that create a barrier between your body and the world. Closest to your skin, you wear a simple linen shift, its fabric softened from countless washings. Over this, a woolen kirtle provides warmth, its fibres treated with lanolin that helps repel dirt and moisture. Each garment serves a specific purpose in this world, where bathing is a rare luxury reserved for the height of summer, or perhaps the midwinter feast if one is particularly concerned with cleanliness. The cottage door opens and an older woman enters, her head covered with a simple linen veil. She smiles at you warmly, as though your presence is expected. The merchant will be arriving by midday, she says softly. We must prepare the holland cloth for his inspection. Her voice carries the gentle authority of a master craftswoman, and you realise you're her apprentice in this curious dream journey through time. She gestures toward a bench near the loom, where several folded pieces of linen await. These pieces must be checked for consistency, she explains. The merchant supplies the burgher homes in the town, and they demand the finest for their body linens. With bathing so infrequent, the quality of what touches their skin becomes all the more important. You sit beside her, and she shows you how to run your fingers across the fabric, feeling for imperfections. The linen is remarkably soft, nothing like the rough homespun you might imagine from this era. She explains that this particular cloth has been washed repeatedly in lye soap, and then beaten with wooden paddles against smooth river stones, a process called beetling. This repeated washing and beating breaks down the rigid fibres, creating a smoother fabric that feels gentler against unwashed skin. The wealthy change their linen garments frequently, she tells you as your fingers glide over the fabric, sometimes daily, if they can afford it. The linen absorbs the body's impurities, you see. When it begins to soil, it can be removed and washed, while the outer garments remain largely untouched. It is how one maintains cleanliness without constant bathing. The concept strikes you as both foreign and sensible, an adaptation to a world where running water is a luxury, and heating enough water for a bath requires considerable effort and resources. You begin to understand that cleanliness in this era is defined differently, yet pursued with equal diligence through other means. As the morning progresses, the weaver teaches you about the different fabrics that define medieval life. She brings forth samples of each, explaining their uses with the patient cadence of someone who has spent a lifetime mastering her craft. Wool comes first, the backbone of medieval textiles. You learn that different grades exist, from the coarse, affordable russet worn by peasants to the fine, soft merino reserved for nobility. Wool, she explains, is nature's blessing to us in this climate. It repels water from the outer surface while still allowing the body to breathe. It can absorb nearly 1/3 its weight in moisture before feeling wet to the touch. She demonstrates by dripping water onto a sample. The droplets bead on the surface before slowly being absorbed. This quality makes it ideal for outer garments in our damp, cool climate. When we treat it with lanolin, the natural oil from the sheep, it becomes even more resistant to soiling. You notice how the woolen garments in the cottage carry a distinct smell, not unpleasant, but earthy and animal. This, the weaver explains, is part of living with natural fibres. The smell is managed through careful storage with herbs and resins. She shows you small sachets of lavender, rosemary, and dried rose petals that are placed between garments when stored. Cedar chips and juniper berries also find their way into clothing chests, their aromatic oils serving as natural repellents for moths and other pests, while imparting a pleasant scent. Those who can afford it will also use ambergris, civet, or musk in their clothing chests, she adds. Some noble ladies have their linens washed in rose water or lavender water. The scent clings to the fabric and surrounds them with a pleasant aroma that helps mask any bodily odours. Next comes silk, a rare luxury in this provincial setting. The weaver handles the small sample with reverence. The fabric shimmers in the light, its surface catching the sun like water in a stream. "This comes from far beyond our borders," she whispers, "from lands where strange creatures spin threads finer than anything we can produce. Only nobility and the wealthiest merchants can afford garments made of this." She explains that silk represents more than just wealth. It is cool against the skin in summer and warm in winter. Its smooth surface resists soiling better than other fibres, making it practical despite its cost. For those who can afford it, silk undergarments provide comfort in a world where bathing is limited to occasional immersions in public bathhouses or private wooden tubs. The morning passes in this gentle education. By midday, you've learned to distinguish different weaves by touch alone: the tight, even structure of tabby weave, the diagonal lines of twill, the complex patterns of damask. Each serves different purposes, from the sturdy fabrics needed for workwear to the decorative textiles that adorn the homes and bodies of the wealthy. When the merchant arrives, you observe the careful dance of commerce. He's a portly man with a discerning eye, and he examines each bolt of cloth with meticulous attention. His fingers probe for weak spots. He holds pieces up to the light to check for consistency. The weaver stands proud but anxious as her work undergoes scrutiny. "Your linen is still the finest in the region," the merchant finally pronounces. The burghers' wives ask for it by name. They say it feels cooler in summer and doesn't irritate their skin like cloth from other weavers. His compliment brings a smile to the weaver's lined face, her pride evident in the straightening of her shoulders. After the merchant departs, leaving behind both coins and new orders, the weaver invites you to join her for a simple midday meal. Bread, cheese, and small ale, the typical fare for craftspeople, is laid out on a wooden board. As you eat, she explains more about the relationship between textiles and hygiene in this world of infrequent bathing. "The changing of a linen garment serves as our daily cleansing," she says, breaking off a piece of bread. "The wealthy may change their chemises and shifts daily. Even among more modest households, the linen closest to the skin is washed regularly. We have developed our own forms of cleanliness, you see." You learn that medieval people are far from ignorant about hygiene. They simply approach it differently. Hands and faces are washed daily with water from pitchers and basins. Teeth are cleaned with cloths and mixtures of herbs or salt. Hair is regularly combed to remove dirt and pests, then covered with veils, caps, or hats, partly for cleanliness and partly for modesty. After the meal, the weaver takes you outside to the area behind the cottage where the dyeing process occurs. Several large cauldrons sit over stone-lined pits where fires can be built. Currently cold and empty, these vessels will transform ordinary cloth into vibrant hues when the dyeing days arrive. "Colour is another way we combat the impression of uncleanliness," she explains. Bright, vivid garments appear fresher, while dark colours can hide stains and soiling. This is why the nobility favour rich, saturated colours. They can afford the finest dyes and the most frequent replacement of garments. She shows you the dye stuff stored in the small shed adjacent to the dyeing yard. Bundles of madder root for red, woad leaves for blue, weld for yellow, walnut hulls for brown. More exotic imports like Brazil wood, indigo and kermes are stored in smaller quantities, their rarity making them precious. Different mordants create different colours from the same plant, she explains, showing you pots containing alum, iron sulfate, and copper acetate. Alum brightens, iron darkens, copper shifts the hue toward green. Through these combinations we create a rainbow of colours from what nature provides. The afternoon continues with lessons in actual weaving. She guides you to the loom and shows you how to pass the shuttle, through the shed created by the lifted warp threads. The rhythm becomes meditative. Pass, beat, change, shed, pass again. Under her guidance, you add several rows to the cloth in progress, the diamond pattern slowly growing under your hands. "Our fabrics must be durable," she explains as you work. "With infrequent washing, they must withstand much wear between cleansings. This is why we weave so densely. 40 threads or more per inch in our finest linens, It resists soiling better and lasts longer between washings. As the afternoon wanes, she shows you the finishing processes that make cloth ready for garment making. Some fabrics are stretched on tenterhooks, wooden frames with hooks that hold the wet fabric taut as it dries, ensuring it remains even and properly sized. Others undergo calendaring, pressed between wooden rollers to create a smoother surface. The finest linens and silks might be burnished with a smooth stone or glass implement, creating a subtle sheen. With the day's work complete, the weaver guides you through the process of preparing for the evening. Without modern plumbing or daily bathing, the end-of-day rituals take on special significance. First comes the washing of hands and face with water from a pitcher, poured over a basin. A cloth moistened with lavender water is used to wipe the neck and behind the ears. A mixture of white wine and herb-infused vinegar serves as a refreshing astringent, cleansing the skin without stripping away its natural oils. Some use fuller's earth mixed with rose water to absorb oil from their skin and hair, she explains, demonstrating with a small pot of greyish clay. It is brushed on, and then buffed away when dry, taking impurities with it. Hair is carefully combed with a fine-toothed comb carved from bone or wood. Any pests that might have taken up residence are removed, and the hair is braided or coiled for sleeping. For those who can afford it, a light dusting of scented powder, made from dried flowers, spices and starches, helps absorb excess oil and impart fragrance. The day's outer garments are brushed carefully with bundles of dried herbs that help remove surface dirt and leave behind a pleasant scent. Spots are treated with mixtures of salt, vinegar or other natural cleansers, appropriate to the fabric and stain. Garments are then hung near the fire to air out, the heat helping to kill any pests and remove dampness accumulated throughout the day. As evening settles over the cottage, the weaver invites you to join her by the hearth. The fire casts warm light across the room, illuminating her face as she begins to share stories of textile traditions passed down through generations. Her voice takes on a rhythmic quality, almost like the steady beat of the loom, as she speaks of the guild's history and the ancient patterns preserved through centuries. She tells you of special ceremonial textiles created for life's significant moments, swaddling clothes for newborns, woven with patterns believed to protect the infant, wedding sheets decorated with symbols of fertility and prosperity, and funeral shrouds, often prepared years in advance by the women of a household, incorporating personal symbols and sometimes even hair from the deceased's loved ones. Cloth connects us to our ancestors, she murmurs, gazing into the fire. The same skills that I practice today have been passed down through countless generations, each adding their own small innovations while honouring the traditions of those who came before. Even as the world changes around us, the fundamental act of transforming fibre into fabric remains constant. She speaks of how fabrics serve as social signifiers in medieval society. The quality, colour and embellishments of one's clothing immediately communicate status and occupation to others. Sumptuary laws dictate who may wear which fabrics and colours. Purple and certain reds reserved for nobility, fur trimmings and gold thread restricted to specific classes. Even the width of decorative borders and the number of pleats in a garment can be regulated. Your clothing speaks before you do, she explains. It tells others your station in life, your wealth, your trade, sometimes even your marital status. This is why people invest so much in their garments, despite their infrequent bathing. Clean, well-maintained clothing of the appropriate quality for one station communicates respectability and honour. As night deepens around the cottage, she shares the wisdom of fabric maintenance in a world where laundering is difficult and infrequent. Linens are washed more often than woolens, which might be cleaned only a few times a year. Washing itself is arduous, involving soaking in lye solutions, beating on rocks, rinsing in streams, and drying in sunlight when weather permits. Instead, spot cleaning, airing and brushing become daily rituals of garment care. We protect our clothes from our bodies, she explains, rather than constantly washing them. The linen shift absorbs sweat and oils, keeping outer garments cleaner. Underarm shields made from additional layers of fabric can be sewn into garments and replaced when soiled. Detachable collars and cuffs, the parts most visible and most likely to soil, can be removed and washed separately. You learn that medieval people are ingenious in their adaptations to limited bathing. Shoes are often removed indoors and replaced with softer indoor slippers to keep floors cleaner. Floors themselves are strewn with fresh herbs that release fragrant oils when crushed underfoot. Rushes mixed with herbs like meadowsweet, lavender, and mint serve as natural air fresheners in homes and halls. Personal accessories also play a role in hygiene. Pomanders, perforated containers filled with aromatic substances like ambergris, musk, or cloves, hang from belts or neck chains, surrounding the wearer with pleasant scents. Handkerchiefs infused with perfume are held to the nose when walking through less savoury environments. Gloves, often scented with jasmine, violet, or rose, protect hands from dirt while imparting fragrance. The weaver rises and prepares a small wooden tub with hot water from the kettle hanging over the fire. This is not for bathing, but for soaking feet. A common evening ritual that provides comfort and cleanliness without the resource expenditure of a full bath. She adds a handful of dried mint and rosemary to the water, and the aromatic steam fills the cottage with a fresh herbal scent. Even without frequent immersion, she says as she invites you to soak your feet, we find ways to keep our bodies comfortable and presentable. The wealthy might use rosewater and almond oil to soften their skin. Those of more modest means rely on tallow balms infused with herbs. Clean bodies and clean clothing are valued by all, though the methods differ from what you might know. As you soak your feet in the fragrant water, she continues her gentle education in medieval textile crafts. She explains how different regions develop signature textiles. The fine woolens of Flanders, the silks of Italy, the hardy linens of northern Europe. Trade routes carry these specialised fabrics across continents, making them symbols of both local identity and global connection. A merchant might wear Venetian silk beneath Flemish wool, cinched with a belt of Spanish leather, she says. Our bodies become maps of commerce, showing how far human ingenuity and desire for beauty can travel. After the foot bath, she shows you how to prepare for sleep in this medieval world. The bed in the corner is nothing like modern mattresses. A wooden frame filled with a straw-stuffed mattress, layered with woolen blankets and linen sheets. Unlike the popular misconception, medieval beds are not uncomfortable. The straw is changed regularly, and the layering of textiles creates a surprisingly cosy nest. For sleeping, you would change into a simple linen night shift, different from the day shift to allow the body a fresh layer against the skin. The day garments are carefully hung to air overnight, perhaps near a window if the weather is appropriate. Some people sleep with small sachets of herbs beneath their pillows, lavender for peaceful dreams, thyme to ward off nightmares, rosemary for memory. As you prepare for rest, the weaver shares one final piece of wisdom about the textile traditions that shape life in this era of limited bathing. Our fabrics do more than clothe us, she says softly. They protect us, define us, connect us to others. They absorb our stories, our sweat, our tears, our celebrations. They carry the memory of our hands and the legacy of our craft. In a world where we cannot simply wash away the evidence of living, we learn to incorporate it, to make it beautiful through the textiles we create and the care we give them. She gestures to the unfinished cloth on the loom, its pattern half complete in the dim evening light. Tomorrow we will continue weaving. The cloth will grow beneath our hands, row by row, just as our understanding grows through patient attention. As night falls fully outside the small windows, the cottage grows quiet except for the occasional pop from the hearth. The weaver prepares a cup of warm, spiced wine to sip before sleeping, another ritual that marks the boundary between day and night in this world without electric lights or modern entertainments. You settle onto the straw-filled mattress, covered with layers of linen and wool. Despite the foreign nature of your surroundings, you find comfort in the simple textures, the smooth linen against your skin, the warm weight of woolen blankets above. The herbs stuffed in the mattress release subtle fragrance with each movement, creating an aromatic cocoon that feels both protective and soothing. The weaver's soft voice continues, explaining how textiles mark the boundaries of our lives, from the swaddling cloth at birth to the shroud at death, with countless garments, bed linens, and household textiles in between. Each piece represents hours of human labour, from the planting of flax seeds or the shearing of sheep, through the final stitches that complete a garment. In your world, she murmurs, seeming somehow aware of your visitor status, you may take fabric for granted. It comes to you already made, requiring no knowledge of its creation. But here, we understand the value of each thread, the significance of each colour. We read the language of textiles as you might read words on a page, seeing in them stories of origin, status, and purpose. She explains how the intimate connection between people and their textiles creates a different relationship with cleanliness. When clothing represents such significant investment of resources and labour, it cannot be casually discarded or subjected to harsh cleaning methods. Instead, protective measures become paramount. Aprons shield dresses from cooking splatter, detachable sleeves keep the main garment clean while working, separate sets of clothes for labour and leisure preserve the better garments for longer wear. We may not immerse our bodies in water daily, she says, but we remain vigilant about cleanliness in ways appropriate to our world. The linen shift absorbs impurities from the skin. The outer garments protect us from the elements. The herbal sachets and perfumed accessories create pleasant environments despite the challenges. We are not unclean, merely different in our approach to bodily care. As sleep begins to overtake you, her voice grows more distant yet remains soothing. She speaks of the rhythm of textile creation, the seasonal nature of harvesting flax and shearing sheep, the winter months spent spinning by the fire, the spring days of weaving when light returns in abundance, the summer devoted to dyeing when plants are at their most potent. These cycles connect textile production to the broader rhythms of agricultural life, creating a harmonious system of labour and rest dictated by nature's patterns. In this gentle state between wakefulness and dreams, you begin to truly understand the medieval relationship with textiles and cleanliness. It is not a world of filth, as modern prejudice might suggest, but a world of adaptation, finding ingenious solutions to maintain dignity and comfort within the constraints of available technology and resources. The knowledge settles over you like the woolen blankets, warm, encompassing, protective. You recognise how your modern sensibilities about daily bathing are themselves cultural constructs rather than universal truths. The medieval approach to cleanliness involves different methods but similar goals: comfort, social acceptance, sensory pleasure, and health maintenance. As consciousness begins to fade, the weaver's words become like threads in a loom, weaving together a tapestry of understanding about this world so different, yet so connected to your own. The essential human needs remain constant across time, the desire for comfort, beauty, and cleanliness, while the methods evolve according to the resources and knowledge available. The last thing you register before sleep claims you completely is the weaver's gentle conclusion. To know a civilization truly, look to its textiles, how they are made, how they are maintained, who wears which kinds, and what value is placed upon them. In these details, you will find the true measure of a society's priorities, its technologies, and its understanding of the human body's relationship with the natural world. As sleep envelops you fully, the cottage, the loom, and the weaver herself seem to dissolve into threads of memory, leaving behind the knowledge they have imparted, a tapestry of understanding about a world where bathing might be rare but cleanliness and dignity were pursued through different yet equally valid means. Through the gossamer veil of dreams, the medieval textile workshop fades like indigo in sunlight, while another realm of forgotten knowledge begins to take shape before your mind's eye. As woolen threads unravel from your thoughts, the glimmer of precious metals and the coolness of ancient stone begins to emerge from the mists of time. Like mist rising from sacred springs, the the twice-yearly bathing ceremonies emerge from the tapestry of medieval time. Waters warmed by solstice fires, herbs gathered under waning moons, and communities gathering in ritual purification. Each droplet carries whispers of ancient wisdom, each ceremony a thread connecting earth to sky, body to soul. You stand at the threshold of the great hall, your fingertips tracing the weathered wood of the doorframe as the first light of dawn trickles through the eastern windows. The small medieval town of Willowbrook is quiet now, but a gentle anticipation hangs in the air like morning dew. Today marks the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, and one of the only 2 days when the entire town participates in the ceremonial bathing ritual that has been tradition for generations. The stone floor feels cool beneath your bare feet as you step into the corridor. Through the narrow windows you catch glimpses of the town awakening. Smoke begins to curl from chimneys, and the occasional figure hurries across the central square, carrying bundles of herbs or wooden buckets. The air inside the hall carries the lingering sense of last night's feast, roasted meats, bread, and the sweet undertones of honeymead. You approach the wooden chest at the foot of your bed, lifting the heavy lid to reveal your special garments reserved only for bathing day. Unlike the practical, often heavily worn clothes of everyday life, these ceremonial robes are made of lighter material, dyed a soft blue to honour the water spirits that the elders still speak of in hushed tones around winter fires. The fabric feels surprisingly soft against your skin as you dress, a stark contrast to the rougher wool and linen that typically make up your wardrobe. Your fingers find the small embroidered symbols along the hem, tiny stars and flowing water patterns sewn with careful precision by the town's most skilled needleworkers. Each stitch represents protection and purification, beliefs woven into the very fabric of Willowbrook's customs. Outside, the town bell begins its slow, melodic toll, calling everyone to gather. 6 rings, one for each decade since the tradition began according to the town chronicler, an elderly man whose memory stretches back further than anyone else's. You fasten a small pouch of dried lavender and rosemary to your belt, herbs gathered during the waxing moon precisely for their cleansing properties, and make your way down the winding staircase. The great hall opens into the square where townspeople have begun to assemble. Children, unusually subdued, stand close to their parents, their hair already brushed and their faces showing evidence of preliminary washing with morning dew, believed to contain special properties when collected on solstice day. The town elder, Mistress Agnes, stands at the centre of the gathering. Her silver hair is adorned with small white flowers, and she leans slightly on a staff carved with symbols similar to those on your ceremonial robe. When she speaks, her voice carries with surprising strength across the hushed square. "Today we honour the ancient covenant," she intones, and you feel the familiar words settle like a comfortable weight upon your shoulders. As the sun reaches its highest point, so too shall we rise in purity. As water cleanses the earth, so shall it cleanse our bodies and spirits. The gathered crowd murmurs the traditional response. From winter to summer, from darkness to light, we seek renewal. The words hang in the morning air, carried by a gentle breeze that rustles the leaves of the ancient oak at the edge of the square. A procession forms with practiced ease. The youngest children lead, carrying small baskets of flower petals, which they scatter along the path. Behind them walk the herbalists, distinguished by the elaborate embroidery on their robes depicting plants sacred to their craft. You find your place among those in the middle of the procession, neither the highest born who will bathe first, nor the craftspeople who will bathe last. The path leads away from the town centre, winding through fields where the summer crops stand tall and green. The wheat and barley bend gently in the morning breeze, creating waves across the landscape that remind you of the very waters you will soon enter. Wildflowers dot the edges of the path, bright patches of blue cornflowers, delicate white stitchwort, and the occasional vibrant red poppy. As you walk, your sandals pressing into the soft earth of the path, the town musicians begin to play. The sound of wooden flutes and small hand drums creates a gentle rhythm that seems to match your heartbeat. An older woman near you begins to hum along, a melody so old that some say it was taught to the townspeople by the forest spirits before written history began. The scent of the air changes subtly as the procession approaches the sacred spring. The earthy smell of tilled fields gives way to the fresh, mineral fragrance of flowing water. The trees grow more abundant, creating a dappled pattern of sunlight and shadow on the path. You've walked this way countless times, but the journey on bathing days always feels somehow different, more purposeful, more ceremonial. Through the trees you catch your first glimpse of the preparations that have been underway since before dawn. Steam rises from the large wooden tubs that have been set up in the clearing around the natural spring. Men and women from the Bath Guild, a position of surprising honour in Willowbrook, tend to fires beneath cauldrons where water from the spring is being heated and infused with carefully selected herbs. The spring itself bubbles up from between ancient stones, arranged in a pattern that, viewed from the nearby hillside, forms the shape of a star. Legend holds that the stones were placed by the first settlers who discovered that the waters here had special properties, healing wounds more quickly, soothing aches, and leaving the skin with a healthy glow that lasted for weeks after bathing. Mistress Agnes raises her staff once more when the procession reaches the clearing, bringing everyone to a halt. "We come seeking cleansing," she announces to the waters, as if the spring itself might hear and respond. "Body and soul we come to be made new." The Bath Guild members bow in acknowledgement and gesture to the separate areas that have been prepared. One for the men and boys, another for the women and girls, with privacy screens crafted from woven reeds and decorated with symbols of protection. As you move toward your designated area, the bath attendants greet you with small clay pots of softened soap made from wood ash, animal fat, and scented with locally grown herbs. This soap is a luxury reserved only for the twice-yearly bathing ceremonies, far different from the harsher lye-based cleansers occasionally used for hands and faces during ordinary days. The bathing follows a precise order, beginning with the town's most prominent families. You watch as they are led to the largest tubs, where attendants pour warmed water over their heads from decorative ewers, reciting traditional blessings with each pour. "May the waters of renewal wash away winter's touch," they say for the solstice bathing. At midwinter, the blessing changes to speak of summer's dust being cleansed away. While waiting your turn, you observe the careful rituals being performed. Children who have reached their 7th year participate in the ceremonial bathing for the first time today. Their expressions a mixture of nervousness and pride. An elderly bath attendant presents each with a small amulet of smooth river stone, blessed by the town's spiritual leader and meant to commemorate this milestone. The sun climbs higher in the sky, filtering through the canopy of leaves above the clearing. The air grows warmer and the scent of herbs becomes more pronounced. Lavender, chamomile, rosemary and mint mingle with the earthier fragrances of the forest. Birds call from the surrounding trees, their songs seeming to harmonize with the continued playing of the musicians. When your turn arrives, you're led to one of the smaller bathing tubs by an attendant dressed in white linen. "May the waters welcome you," she says, the traditional greeting that has remained unchanged for generations. You respond with the customary words, "and may I emerge renewed." The first touch of the warm water against your skin sends a pleasant sensation up your spine. Unlike the quick, functional washing that might occur between ceremonial bathing days, this is an experience of complete immersion. The water has been infused with herbs chosen specifically for their protective and cleansing properties. Rosemary for remembrance of lessons learned since the last bathing day, lavender for peaceful dreams in the seasons to come, and juniper berries for strength. The attendant speaks softly as she assists with the bathing ritual. "Close your eyes and breathe deeply," she instructs, her voice barely above a whisper. With each breath, imagine the light of the solstice sun filling your body. You do as instructed, feeling the warm water envelop you. The ceremonial soap creates a rich lather as it's applied to your skin and hair, its scent reminiscent of flowering meadows and sun-warmed herbs. Time seems to slow in this moment, the outside world fading away until there is only the sensation of warmth, the gentle hands of the attendant, and the soft murmur of water being poured. The rinsing ritual begins with water collected directly from the sacred spring, stored in special vessels that have been handed down through generations of Bath Guild families. This water, still cool from the earth's depths, is poured slowly over your head as the attendant recites, "From the heart of the earth to the crown of your head, may clarity flow through your thoughts and dreams." More water follows, some warmed, some cool, each pouring accompanied by a different blessing, for health, for wisdom, for connection to the land and its seasons. The final rinse incorporates water in which rose petals have steeped since midnight, believed to attract good fortune and keep illness at bay until the next ceremonial bathing at midwinter. As you emerge from the bath, you are wrapped in a linen drying cloth that has been warmed near one of the heating fires. Another attendant approaches, carrying a small earthenware cup of fragrant oil, a mixture of pressed lavender, chamomile, and the precious rosehip oil that merchants bring from distant lands. With practiced movements, she applies a tiny amount to your forehead, wrists, and the back of your neck, places where the pulse is strong and the scent will linger. "Carry the blessing of the waters with you," she says, completing the ritual with a gentle touch to your shoulder, until winter's cleansing calls us again. You dress in the second part of your ceremonial garments. Fresh clothes reserved for after the bathing, lighter in colour than the ones you wore before to symbolise the transformation from impurity to purity. These clothes will be carefully stored away after today, not to be worn again until the next bathing ceremony. Emerging from behind the privacy screens, you rejoin the gathering in the main clearing. There's a notable difference in the atmosphere now. Faces appear brighter, postures more relaxed, conversations flow more easily. The shared experience of the ceremonial bathing has renewed not only bodies, but the bonds of community. Tables have been set up at the edge of the clearing, laden with special foods prepared for this day. Unlike the heavier fare of ordinary days, bathing day meals consist of lighter offerings: fresh bread with honey, fruits preserved from the previous autumn, young cheeses, and clear broths infused with early summer vegetables. Wine is served in small cups, diluted with spring water and flavoured with mint leaves. You find a place to sit on one of the wooden benches, accepting a plate of food from one of the serving attendants. The meal is eaten slowly, mindfully, with conversation kept purposefully light and pleasant. Topics of discord or worry are traditionally avoided on bathing days, believed to contaminate the purity achieved through the ceremony. As you eat, you observe the various customs being enacted around you. New mothers present their infants born since the last bathing day for blessing at the edge of the spring. Young couples who wish to announce their intentions exchange rings of woven reeds that will last until the next ceremony, a trial period of commitment. The town's craftspeople display special items created specifically for this occasion: carved wooden combs, embroidered towels, and small vials designed to hold the sacred spring water. The afternoon progresses at an unhurried pace. Children who have completed their first ceremonial bathing are led in a special dance around the spring, their movements mimicking the flow of water. Elders gather near the largest oak tree, sharing stories and wisdom that tradition holds can only be spoken aloud on bathing days. These tales, part history, part mythology, connect the present moment to the town's distant past. You find yourself drawn to one such circle of storytelling, settling on the soft grass to listen as an elder with a voice like rustling leaves speaks of the town's founding. "Before there were stone walls," he says, gesturing toward the distant outline of Willowbrook. "Before there were ploughed fields or marked paths, there was the spring. Our ancestors, weary from long wandering, discovered these waters during the height of summer, when their need was greatest." The story continues, describing how the first settlers found not just physical refreshment in the spring, but a deeper connection to the land itself. They established the bathing ritual as an act of gratitude, a recognition that water, clean, healing water, was the most precious gift a community could receive. What began as simple necessity evolved over generations into the elaborate ceremony you've participated in today. As the elder speaks, you notice how the quality of light has begun to change, the bright clarity of midday softening into the golden hues of late afternoon. The shadows of the trees grow longer across the clearing, and the air takes on a subtle coolness that hints at evening's approach. The musicians strike up a new melody, this one more lively than the processional tunes. It signals the beginning of the day's final ritual, the Dance of Cycles, performed by 12 selected townspeople who have spent months practicing the intricate steps and formations. They form a circle around the spring, their movements telling the story of water's journey, from sky to earth, from spring to stream, from body to soil, and back to sky again. You watch, mesmerised by the flowing gestures and the way the dancers' shadows blend with their bodies in the late afternoon light. Their feet barely seem to touch the ground as they move in perfect unison, their blue ceremonial robes swirling like water itself. This dance, unchanged for centuries, serves as a physical reminder of the continuous cycles that govern all life. As the dance reaches its conclusion, the dancers pause in a tableau around the spring, their arms raised toward the sky in a gesture of reverence and gratitude. Mistress Agnes approaches the centre of their formation, carrying a large silver vessel that catches the sunlight. She dips it into the spring, filling it with water that will be kept in the town's central hall until the next ceremony. A physical link between this bathing day and the one that will come at midwinter. "From this vessel," she announces, her voice carrying across the now silent clearing, "the first drops of our next cleansing will flow. As the wheel of the year turns from longest day to longest night, may our community remain as constant as these waters." The gathering responds with the traditional closing phrase, "In flowing water, we find ourselves. In changing seasons, we remain whole." With these words, the formal part of the ceremony concludes. The atmosphere shifts subtly as people begin to gather their belongings, children run and play more freely, and conversations grow more animated. The strictures of the ceremonial day gradually loosen, though no one will return to regular work until tomorrow's dawn. You rise from your place near the storytelling circle, feeling a pleasant weariness in your limbs, not the heaviness of exhaustion, but the comfortable fatigue that comes from meaningful ritual. Your skin feels different, softer, more alive, and carries the lingering scent of the ceremonial herbs and oils. The walk back to town follows a different path than the morning's procession. While you approach the spring from the east, following the rising sun, the return journey tracks westward, acknowledging the sun's descent. This path is wider, winding through meadows rather than fields, allowing people to walk in casual groups rather than the formal procession of the morning. Wildflowers grow in abundance along this route, tangles of red campion, clusters of white yarrow, and patches of yellow buttercups that seem to glow in the late afternoon light. Children dart from the path to gather small bouquets, a permitted indulgence on bathing days when the flowers are believed to hold special properties. As you walk, conversations flow around you. Unlike ordinary days when talk often centres on work, weather, and practical concerns, post-bathing discussions tend toward the reflective. People speak of dreams they've had since winter ceremony, insights gained during today's rituals, and hopes for the season to come. There's an openness, a vulnerability, that exists only in this liminal time between the sacred ceremony and the return to daily life. An older woman falls into step beside you, her silver hair now loose and drying in the gentle breeze. "Your 7th ceremony, isn't it?" she asks, though you suspect she knows the answer already. In a town the size of Willowbrook, life's milestones are rarely forgotten. You confirm her question with a nod, and she smiles, the lines around her eyes deepening. "I remember my 7th, she says, gazing ahead as if looking into the past. The summer was particularly hot that year, and the spring water felt like the greatest blessing I'd ever known. She shares a few more memories as you walk together. The year a rare thunderstorm interrupted the ceremony, forcing everyone to continue the rituals beneath hastily constructed shelters. The time a travelling merchant arrived during the procession and, not understanding the town's customs, attempted to set up his wares in the middle of the ceremonial path. Her stories carry you all the way back to the edge of town, where the meadow path meets the more defined road leading to Willowbrook's gates. Here, another tradition unfolds, the hanging of fresh herbs above each home's entrance, a final protective act to seal in the ceremony's benefits. You watch as families collect small bundles that have been prepared by the town's herbalists, combinations of protective plants like rowan and bay leaves tied with blue thread and blessed with spring water. These will remain above doorways until they dry completely, at which point they'll be carefully burned in the household fire, releasing a final blessing into the home. The town square has been transformed during your absence. Tables have been arranged in a large circle, benches placed along their outer edges. In the centre, a shallow pit has been prepared for the evening fire, not for cooking but for light and symbolic warmth as the community shares the ceremonial evening meal. Unlike the hasty breakfast and practical midday meals of working days, the post-bathing feast unfolds at a deliberate pace. Courses are brought out slowly, giving people time to savour each offering and appreciate the connections between the food and the land that provides it. You find your place at one of the tables, settling onto a bench between a young apprentice carpenter and an elderly weaver. The first course arrives, a clear broth served in wooden bowls, the surface dotted with tiny flowers and herb leaves. The server explains each ingredient as she ladles the steaming liquid. Thyme for courage, sorrel for joy, calendula for vision, all nourished by the same waters that cleansed us today. As twilight deepens into evening, lanterns are lit around the square, their soft glow creating pools of golden light that connect one table to the next. The central fire is ceremonially lit by the youngest and oldest members of the community working together, a child of 6 summers and a man who has seen more than 80. The flames rise slowly at first, then with growing confidence, casting flickering shadows across the gathered faces. There's a collective sigh as the fire establishes itself, a sound so quiet you feel it more than hear it, a release of collective breath as if the town itself is exhaling. More courses follow, bread baked in the shape of the sun, roasted vegetables arranged to represent the colours of the spring, preserved fruits soaked in honey and spices, small cakes flavoured with dried berries and nuts. Each is presented with a brief explanation of its significance to the season and the ceremony. Between courses, various townspeople stand to offer songs, poems, or brief stories, another tradition specific to bathing days. These performances aren't rehearsed or formal, they emerge naturally from the community's shared experience. A young woman sings a ballad about the changing seasons that brings tears to several eyes. An older craftsman recites a poem handed down through his family for generations, his voice growing stronger with each verse. As the night deepens and the stars emerge above the town, children begin to drift into sleep, curling up on blankets laid at the edges of the square or in their parents' laps. There's no rush to send them to bed on this special night. Tradition holds that dreams following the bathing ceremony are particularly significant, regardless of where sleep finds you. The conversations around you grow quieter, more intimate. At your table, the weaver speaks of patterns she's developed that incorporate symbols of flowing water. The apprentice describes a chest he's learning to build that will hold a family's ceremonial bathing clothes between festivals. Their words flow and overlap like the very waters being celebrated, sometimes pausing to accommodate comfortable silence. As midnight approaches, Mistress Agnes rises once more. The silver vessel of spring water sits before her on a small wooden stand. She lifts it carefully, moving to the centre of the square where the fire has burned down to a bed of glowing embers. At the turning of day to night, she intones, her voice carrying easily through the hushed square, we honour the completion of our ceremony. She tilts the vessel slightly, allowing 3 drops of spring water to fall upon the embers. They sizzle briefly, releasing small puffs of steam that rise into the night air. From water we came, she continues, and to water we shall return. May the blessings of this day carry us through the waxing and waning of the moon, until winter's cleansing calls us back to the sacred spring. The gathered community responds as one, until the waters call us home. With this final ritual exchange, the ceremonial day officially ends. People rise slowly from the tables, gathering sleeping children and exchanging quiet goodnights. There's no rush, no sudden dispersal. Like water finding its level, the community gradually flows back to individual homes. You remain seated for a few moments longer, watching as the square empties and the last lanterns are extinguished. Your body feels different after the day's rituals, lighter somehow, as if some invisible burden has been lifted away by the spring waters. Your hair, now fully dry, seems to catch the starlight differently, and your skin carries the subtle fragrance of ceremonial oils. Rising at last, you make your way through the quiet streets toward home. The stone buildings of Willowbrook stand as solid shadows against the night sky, their outlines softened by darkness. Above each doorway, the newly hung herb bundles sway gently in the night breeze, releasing their subtle fragrances. Inside your dwelling, you carefully remove your ceremonial clothes, folding them with precise movements before placing them in the cedar chest, where they'll remain until midwinter's ceremony. The chest closes with a soft sound, sealing away this tangible connection to the day's rituals until the wheel of the year turns once more. Your bed, a simple frame with a straw-filled mattress covered in linen, welcomes you with familiar comfort. As you settle beneath the woolen blanket, your thoughts drift like leaves on water, reviewing moments from the day, the cool touch of morning dew, the warmth of ceremonial waters, the stories shared around the evening fire. Through your small window you can see the stars, countless points of light in the velvet darkness. Tomorrow, life in Willowbrook will resume its normal rhythms. There will be fields to tend, bread to bake, cloth to weave, wood to carve. But tonight, suspended in this space between ceremony and ordinary days, you exist in perfect balance, cleansed, renewed, connected to both earth and sky. Your breathing slows, deepens. The scents of lavender and rosemary linger around you, carried from the herb bundle above your door by a gentle night breeze. In the distance, an owl calls, once, twice, 3 times, its voice carrying across the sleeping town. As consciousness begins to fade, giving way to the realm of dreams, you carry with you the day's final blessing. May you flow like water, adapt like water, find strength like water, until the wheel turn again and the midwinter bathing ceremony calls the town back to the sacred spring. And now, as our journey through these medieval customs comes to its restful close, I want to thank you for joining me in these gentle explorations of history's quieter moments. If you found comfort in these stories of ancient customs and forgotten ways, please consider subscribing so you'll never miss our next journey into the soothing realms of the past. Like the ceremonial waters that renewed our medieval townsfolk twice yearly, may these tales continue to refresh your spirit whenever you need a peaceful escape from modern life.